It started with her shoes. Vanessa had always been methodical. 2 pairs of sneakers rotated for gym days, kept spotless and aligned beneath the hallway bench. But last Tuesday, I noticed something odd. One pair, her neon green Asics, was missing. Not in the closet, not near the laundry, not even drying by the heater like she sometimes did after running. I chalked it up to her being forgetful. We all have our moments. Then I noticed they were missing again Thursday. Then Monday. We'd been married 8 years. Long enough to know the rhythms. She hit the gym 4 days a week, religiously. Always after dropping the kids at school, between 9 and 11 a.m. The schedule was predictable. The routine, sacred. Vanessa was disciplined, the kind of woman who used a planner even for Saturday mornings. Spin classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, private training sessions on Wednesdays and Fridays. Or so she said. I never thought to question it. Until those shoes started disappearing without returning. She claimed she worked out with her trainer, Max, a man I'd never met but had heard of often enough to recognize his name instantly. She described him as relentless, strict, exactly what she needed to bounce back after the kids. She used that phrase a lot. Bounce back. Like she was a stretched rubber band trying to find its original form. I used to tease her about it. You already look amazing, I'd say. She'd laugh, but her smile never reached her eyes. She'd dismiss it with a light jab. That's sweet, but you don't have to lie to me. Still, something had shifted. Our intimacy became calculated. Not colder, just careful. Her touches felt rehearsed, like choreography she knew by heart, but no longer felt. At first, I blamed work, stress, parenting. But after the shoes, I started noticing more. Like her water bottle. It used to be half full when she returned from the gym. Now, it came back empty, the outside bone dry. No condensation. No sweat-stained towel draped over her shoulder. No flushed cheeks from a hard session. Just clean, tidy Vanessa, walking in like she'd stepped out of a catalog. And then there was her scent. No trace of gym musk. Just floral shampoo and hints of lavender body wash, like she'd just showered somewhere else. I knew what I was doing. I was starting to inventory her. Analyzing movements, comparing details, logging patterns. Like a detective, or a man falling apart, trying to make sense of a puzzle he didn't ask to solve. Still, I didn't say anything. Not yet. I needed something tangible. The first break came from our bank. I manage our finances, always have. On Sunday nights, I reconcile accounts while Vanessa prepares lunches for the kids. She was out with her friend Mia that night, and I was sifting through the credit card statements when I saw it. A hotel charge. The Bellamy Suites. $217. I frowned. That wasn't right. We hadn't gone out, hadn't traveled, hadn't even planned a date night. The charge was from Thursday, Vanessa's spin day, at 10:43 a.m. There it was. I didn't say anything right away. I stared at the line item for what felt like an hour. The Bellamy was a mid-tier hotel near the business district. Not exactly romantic, but private enough. Close enough to the gym to make sense. When she returned from her night out, she kissed me on the cheek, laughing about Mia's new haircut and the terrible wine at some new tapas place. I smiled, nodded. Inside, something coiled and snapped. The next morning, I called out sick. Said I had a migraine. Vanessa kissed my forehead and whispered, "Try to rest. Love you," before heading off to drop the kids. She left at 8:12 a.m. I waited until 9:45 before I followed her. Not dramatically, no trench coat, no binoculars. Just me, in my car, trailing behind, heart pounding like I was 17 again, doing something I shouldn't. She didn't go to the gym. She drove past it. I watched her turn into the Bellamy Suites. My hands clenched the steering wheel, knuckles pale. I waited. 10 minutes. Then 20. At 23 minutes, I parked and walked inside. The lobby was sterile, beige, and forgettable. A soft instrumental version of a pop song played overhead. I walked past the reception desk like I belonged. The clerk didn't even glance up. There was a coffee stand to the right. I grabbed a cup I didn't need, took the elevator to the second floor, where the parking lot view showed her car. I walked slowly, scanning the doors. Room 214. The only one with the Do Not Disturb sign dangling. I stood there for a moment, listening. Nothing but silence. I couldn't bring myself to knock. Instead, I turned and left. That afternoon, I greeted her with a smile. She said her trainer had pushed her too hard and her thighs were sore. I nodded, offered to draw a bath. She declined. Said she'd already showered at the gym. I nodded again, tucking away the lie like a souvenir. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake beside her, listening to the rhythmic rise and fall of her breathing. My wife, my partner, the mother of our children. And now, something else. A stranger. By morning, I had a plan. I'd need time, patience, tools. So I ordered a GPS tracker, a few discreet cameras, audio recorders. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I needed certainty. I needed footage. Evidence. A confession she couldn't wiggle out of. Because the way she smiled at me, the way she still leaned in for a kiss, the way she played with our daughter's curls or corrected our son's messy handwriting, none of it matched the image of her in room 214. And yet, I had seen it. Thursday came again. The shoes were missing. Her bag heavier than usual. She kissed the kids goodbye, then me. Don't wait up if I run late. Max wants to try a new cardio circuit. I smiled and nodded. 10 minutes later, I was in my car, engine off, watching the Bellamy's parking lot. Her car arrived at 9:37 a.m. She didn't hesitate. Straight through the lobby, up the elevator. This time, I brought a camera. This time I saw him. Max tall, tanned, cocky grin. He kissed her at the door. A long, slow kiss. The kind you only give to someone you don't have to lie to. They disappeared inside together. I had my proof. But this wasn't the confrontation. This was just the beginning. I sat in my car for hours after that, replaying it in my mind. The movements, the way her body pressed against his, the ease of it, like it had happened 100 times before. That night, she came home glowing, told me Max had really pushed her. Her abs were sore. Her thighs burned. He's brutal, she laughed. I stared at her for a long moment. You should rest then, I said. She smiled. Maybe later. I feel good. I nodded, and she kissed me again. Light. Breezy. A lie. The next day, I sent the footage to a secure drive. Then I started planning the next phase. The confrontation wouldn't just be private. No, this would be public. Unforgettable. And I'd make sure she'd remember it every time she looked in the mirror. Every time someone said the word trainer. There's a quiet kind of rage. Not the screaming, fist through drywall kind. Not the slam the door and drive into the night sort. No, this was colder. Precise. The kind of fury that doesn't rise, it burrows. Builds a nest behind your ribs and settles in. By the following Monday, it was already comfortable in me. I no longer wondered if Vanessa was cheating. That was settled. I had footage of her and Max entering the Bellamy suites not once, but 3 times. Each time, their body language told a story I couldn't unsee. The way she laughed at something he said as they walked past the glass doors. The way he touched her lower back just before disappearing behind the hotel room door. The kind of touch that says, "You're mine now." The first time it happened, I told myself it was a mistake. Maybe a meeting. Maybe a surprise spa package she didn't want to tell me about because she thought I'd find it frivolous. But that idea only lasted until I reviewed the footage from the tracker I'd slipped into her gym bag. The GPS location didn't ping at the gym at all. Just straight to the hotel. Twice a week. Like clockwork. Wednesdays and Fridays, just after school drop-off. 2 hours, sometimes 3. Then she'd come home, claim sore quads, stretch on the yoga mat while the kids colored at the kitchen table. I wanted to scream. Instead, I made coffee. I had work to do. The next phase required subtlety. A confrontation now would give her control of the narrative. Tears. Denials. Maybe even flipping the script. Accusing me of invading her privacy, of being paranoid, controlling. I wouldn't give her that chance. So I reached out to an old college roommate, Jamie, a software engineer who now built cyber surveillance tools for corporate security firms. I wasn't planning anything illegal. Just thorough. Jamie owed me a favor. I called it in. Within days, I had a program installed on Vanessa's laptop that duplicated every keystroke, mirrored her messages, tracked her logins. Emails, calendar events, browser history, even private WhatsApp conversations. The pattern emerged fast. She had Max saved in her phone under Monique Pilates. That alone might have been funny, if not for the contents of their chat. They kept it light. Flirty. Just enough to be deniable. No graphic images. No overt mentions of their meetings. But the coded language was obvious once you knew what to look for. Spin class rescheduled, 9:45? Bring your massage gun, winky face. Hope you're sore tomorrow like last week. My stomach turned. Meanwhile, the kids played outside. Vanessa smiled across the dinner table like everything was normal. I noticed she started wearing lipstick again. Just a light sheen, nothing obvious. Nude shades, subtle but new. There was also a change in her scent, still lavender, but underneath it, a different perfume. Muskier, almost daring. I bided my time. The next piece of the puzzle was Max. I didn't know much about him besides what Vanessa volunteered. Former athlete, moved to town 2 years ago, built a client base fast. The kind of man people described as charismatic, without realizing it was code for arrogant. I started watching his social media. He posted mostly fitness content, protein shakes, training tips, thirst traps disguised as before and after shots. But what caught my attention wasn't on his profile, it was in the tags. Several women, most of them married, had tagged him in stories. Push me to my limits today at Trainer Max Fit Flexed Biceps Fire. Or he doesn't just work your body, he transforms your life. The comments made my skin crawl. This wasn't a personal betrayal, it was part of his brand. He'd positioned himself as the body and soul trainer. A motivator. A confidant. A man women confided in, emotionally and physically. I knew what I had to do next. I booked a session. Under a fake name. Using a throwaway email and a prepaid card, I signed up as Ryan Marks, a potential client seeking general toning and conditioning. I booked a consultation for the following Thursday, his only open slot, Vanessa's usual gym day. The fitness center was upscale, tucked between a craft juicery and a yoga studio. Clean, minimalist. I wore a hoodie and ball cap, sunglasses inside, and a fabricated limp for good measure. Max didn't recognize me. His handshake was strong. Fake smile. Ryan, right? Yeah. He launched into a well-rehearsed spiel about holistic wellness. How real transformation starts with mindset. How he customizes plans based on individual goals. I kept my answers vague. I've got an old knee injury. Want to ease back into things. He nodded thoughtfully. A lot of my clients are like that. Especially after kids. That phrase stung. He said it casually, like he assumed I was a father. He had no idea I already knew everything. After the session, I loitered in the cafe next door. I watched as Vanessa arrived 15 minutes later, parking 2 spaces down from where I sat. Same athletic leggings. Same oversized hoodie. She entered the building smiling, eyes scanning the lobby like she was arriving for a date. They left 30 minutes later. Separately, but I knew where they were going. I drove to the Bellamy and parked around the back. Waited. Watched. Room 214. Again. By Friday night, I had what I needed. Footage. Messages. GPS data. Her calendar. But there was one last thing missing. I needed her to see what I saw. And so I planned the dinner. It was our anniversary, conveniently. 11 years. A modest milestone, but enough to justify a fancy night out. I booked a reservation at a rooftop restaurant she'd mentioned months ago. She was thrilled. Said she'd been hoping we could do something just us. No kids, no distractions. We need to reconnect, she said, pouring herself a glass of wine while I stood at the stove. I feel like we've been drifting lately. The irony nearly choked me. I smiled and nodded. I know what you mean. I think this dinner will help. And it would, just not in the way she imagined. Because while she picked out a dress, I was assembling the final piece of the puzzle. A slideshow. Elegant. Minimal. Photos. Timestamps. Screenshots. Surveillance stills. All compiled onto a sleek tablet. And at the bottom, a single line. I know everything. That morning, I scheduled a delivery. The restaurant maitre d' was instructed to bring a gift-wrapped box to our table between appetizers and entrees. Inside, the tablet. Inside the tablet, the truth. We arrived just before sunset. The skyline shimmered, casting golden hues across the glass railings. Vanessa looked stunning. Hair pinned back, dress flowing, a delicate silver necklace resting above her collarbone. You look beautiful, I told her. She smiled. You clean up pretty well yourself. We toasted, laughed, talked about the kids. She reached across the table, touching my hand. I've missed you, she whispered. A waiter appeared. Special delivery for Mrs. Caldwell, he said, setting down the box. Her brow furrowed. You got me something? Open it. She smiled, curious. Untied the ribbon. Lifted the lid. Her smile faded. She pulled out the tablet. The screen lit up on touch, revealing the first image. Her and Max, holding hands outside the Bellamy. Then the next. Then the next. Her face paled. She glanced at me, lips parted. I didn't say a word. She stared down, frozen, as the slideshow continued, each photo more damning than the last. And then the screen went black, revealing only the message. I know everything. Her hands trembled as she set the tablet down. What is this?" she whispered. I leaned in slowly, voice low. "It's your trainer, Vanessa." Her eyes widened. "And the workouts, they weren't in the gym, were they?" She shook her head once, almost imperceptibly. Then she whispered something that made my blood run cold. "Who else knows?" I smiled. "Let's find out, shall we?" I stood up, walked to the edge of the terrace, turned back, and pressed send. Across town, a dozen inboxes lit up. The au pair, her mother, her best friend, our kid's school principal, Max's gym sponsors. A curated list of everyone who mattered. Attached, the very same slideshow. Her world was about to burn, and I intended to watch it happen. From the front row, the silence at the table was louder than the music floating over the rooftop speakers. Vanessa's hands lay still, fingertips brushing the edges of the gift box, as if unsure whether to pick it up or shove it off the table. Her lips parted, then closed again. The glow of the city cast shadows across her face, but not enough to hide what was written there. Panic. It was the first genuine expression I'd seen from her in weeks. She didn't speak. Not right away. And I didn't push. I simply leaned back, folded my napkin in my lap, and took a slow sip of my wine. The silence stretched. And then, finally, her voice, barely audible. "What did you do?" I didn't answer. Not with words. Instead, I tapped my phone once. Notifications flared. Messages released. She felt it before she heard it. Her own phone buzzing frantically in her clutch. Multiple dings. More than just a friend or two. She reached for it with a shaking hand, opened the screen, and I watched her eyes flit back and forth, scrolling through the beginning of her unraveling. First was Mia, her best friend, asking, "What is this?" Then her sister, "Is this real? Tell me this is fake." And then a message from the school. That one hit her hardest. Vanessa dropped the phone as if it burned her. Her breath stuttered. "The school." I tilted my head, as if pondering. "You told them Max was a mentor. A role model. You asked for him to lead the PDA wellness seminar." She blinked. "Once. Twice. I trusted you," I said softly. "And you invited him into our children's lives." A gust of wind swept across the rooftop, scattering a few napkins. The laughter from the nearby tables continued, oblivious. We were seated in the far corner, isolated by design. Vanessa's voice was brittle when it returned. "You humiliated me." "No," I replied, calm. "You did that all by yourself. I just turned on the lights." She pushed back from the table suddenly, the legs of her chair screeching across the floor. "I can't. This is..." Her words failed her. I stood slowly, watching her shake. She wasn't crying yet. She was still in the denial phase. Still scrambling for a version of this story where she was the victim, the misunderstood heroine of her own tragedy. But reality was already setting in. Her phone kept buzzing. When she turned to leave, I let her go. There was no scene, no yelling, no grand final word. That would come later. Tonight was about precision, destruction, reckoning. Back home, the house was still. The babysitter had tucked the kids in and left a quiet note on the kitchen counter. I stood in the doorway of their room for a long time, just watching them sleep. James, with his dinosaur pajamas, legs kicked out of the covers. Sonia curled like a comma, one hand tucked beneath her cheek. Innocent, untouched by the chaos unfolding in the adult world. I wasn't angry anymore. Not in that moment. Just profoundly, deeply tired. Downstairs, I poured myself a glass of water and sat at the kitchen table where Vanessa normally paid bills and folded laundry. Her planner still sat open, a week of appointments scribbled in neat handwriting. Wednesday, PT, core and glutes. Friday, interval training with them. I laughed, a bitter, hollow thing. Then I flipped ahead, scanning the coming weeks. It wasn't just about the affair. It was the scale of the lie. The time carved out, the web of falsehoods wrapped around it. The effort it must have taken to deceive so thoroughly, so consistently, for so long. She hadn't just cheated on me. She'd rewritten our life. By the next morning, the backlash had begun. Messages poured in. Some friends reached out in disbelief. A few neighbors offered condolences cloaked in gossip. But the one that stuck with me was from Vanessa's boss, Carol. "I'm sorry this is how it came to light. We'll be discussing Vanessa's continued role here. This behavior reflects poorly on the company. That one would hurt. Vanessa had fought tooth and nail to climb the ranks at her firm. Her reputation was her armor. And now, it was cracking. By noon, Max had deleted all his social media profiles. I smiled when I saw that. One by one, the walls were crumbling. But the day's highlight came at 3:27 p.m. Vanessa came home. I watched her car pull into the driveway, headlights still on despite the daylight. She sat there for a full 5 minutes before exiting. No sunglasses. No pretense. Just her. She looked different. Smaller somehow. She stepped into the kitchen without saying a word. Her makeup was smeared. I couldn't tell if it was from tears or the rain. She sat down across from me at the table. No greetings. Just two people on opposite sides of something broken beyond repair. "I've lost my job," she said quietly. I nodded. "I'm aware." She looked at me. Eyes bloodshot. You sent that to my mom." "Yes." "Why?" "Because she deserves to know who raised her grandchildren." Vanessa's hands trembled. She pressed her palms flat to the table like she needed to anchor herself. "You've destroyed me." "You destroyed us," I corrected. "I just ensured the truth wasn't buried under your curated life." Her breath hitched. "What do you want?" I paused. That was the question, wasn't it? What did I want? Justice? Revenge? Freedom? Maybe all of the above. But before I could answer, her phone buzzed again. She picked it up, glanced at the screen, then quickly flipped it over. Her jaw tightened. "Max says he's leaving town," she muttered. "Smart man." Silence returned. She leaned back slowly. "What now?" I stood, walked to the drawer, pulled out a manila envelope, slid it across the table. Inside were divorce papers and a paternity test. 2 results, one for James, one for Sonia, both mine. She looked up, shocked. I gave her a cold smile. I had to be sure. "You understand." Her eyes welled with tears now. "What are you going to tell them?" "That their mother made mistakes, and their father did what he had to do to protect them." She looked like she might break, and for a split second, I almost softened. Almost. But then I remembered her lies. The hotel keys. The laughter. The way she kissed him like he was her anchor while I sat home feeding our daughter macaroni and reading bedtime stories. So I turned away. "Tell your lawyer to call mine." I walked toward the front door. Behind me, she whispered something I barely heard. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I stopped, but I didn't turn around. "I never do," I said. Then I walked out. Not forever. Not yet. Because this story wasn't over. Not until he paid, too. You'd think exposing the affair would feel like the final chapter. That once the secret was out, and Vanessa sat across the table with mascara-streaked cheeks and a manila envelope in her trembling hands, I'd feel done. But I didn't. Because while Vanessa had lit the match, he held the gasoline. Max, the trainer, the wellness guru, the man who smiled in photos with kettlebells in hand, promising to transform your life in 30 days or less. He didn't just take my wife. He built a business around taking wives. And I wanted him to feel it. Not just the sting of exposure, but the weight of consequence. So, I began with what I had, evidence. Footage. Screenshots. Patterns. Not just of Vanessa, but of other clients. Women I'd seen tagged in his posts, laughing in selfies, draped over weight benches like they were props in some sleazy audition. I compiled a dossier. At first, I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Maybe just a collection of faces to prove Vanessa wasn't the first, and likely wouldn't be the last. But the deeper I dug, the uglier it got. There were 6 women. 6, including Vanessa. 2 were still married. 1, recently divorced under irreconcilable differences. Another, fired from her corporate job after HR received an anonymous tip about an inappropriate relationship between her and her trainer. All 6 told the same story once I reached out. Carefully, anonymously, through new emails and encrypted apps. At first, they were cautious, then angry, then grateful. Each woman had been drawn in slowly. He didn't come on strong, just built trust, made them feel powerful, desirable, needed. The workout sessions became therapy. The therapy became flirtation. Flirtation became hotel rooms. And hotel rooms turned into silence and shame. Max ghosted most of them after a few months. Claimed he had to refocus. Said they were getting too attached. Then moved on to the next. But not Vanessa. No, she was his favorite. He'd kept her longer than the others. Why? Maybe because she gave him gifts. Maybe because she let him meet the kids once under the guise of Family Fitness Day. Maybe because she believed she was different. It made me sick. And it made me plan. First, I contacted the gym. I knew they wouldn't listen to a jilted husband ranting about his wife's affair with a personal trainer. They'd assume bias, emotion. So I became anonymous again. I sent them a carefully curated package, edited clips of Max escorting women in and out of hotels on company time, timestamps matching his session calendar, messages extracted from multiple women's phones. Yes, some had kept the receipts. No revenge porn. No dramatic flair. Just the facts. The kind of facts a legal department cannot ignore. The gym responded with corporate speed. By the following Tuesday, Max's profile vanished from their website. His booking page redirected to a generic, trainer, not available screen. I smiled when I saw it. Strike one. Strike two came at his home. No, I didn't confront him physically. I wasn't interested in getting arrested. But I knew his address, thanks to a background report I'd run weeks earlier. And I knew his landlord. The building was owned by a management company that prided itself on maintaining a professional tenant profile. It said so right on their homepage. So I forwarded the same package. Added a note about inappropriate activities during business hours and potential legal liability tied to tenants' conduct. By Thursday, Max received his eviction notice. 30 days to vacate. Strike two. But strike three? That was personal. He'd blocked Vanessa, of course. After the fallout, he cut ties, went silent, disappeared from socials. But I knew where he'd resurface. Predators don't go extinct. They migrate. So I created a fake fitness account on Instagram, generic, alluring. A fake profile photo of a woman in workout gear. A few fitness quotes. A couple of stock gym selfies. Within a week, he followed it. 2 days later, he messaged, "Need help reaching your goals?" I nearly laughed. Instead, I answered, "Actually, yes. But I've got some emotional stuff too. Can we talk during training?" "Of course," he wrote back. "It's about mind and body." Classic. I booked a session under the alias. Paid in full up front. Told him I'd be at a rented Airbnb under renovation, private, discreet, perfect for focused workouts. He agreed. Said he'd be there Saturday morning at 10. I arrived early. Set up the cameras. Audio recorders. A voice assistant in the corner for real-time transcription. Not to trap him. To document him. He showed up, exactly on time. Tight shirt. Too much cologne. That grin, the one I'd memorized on footage outside the Bellamy. "Hey," he said, stepping inside. "Nice spot. You must be." He stopped mid-sentence when he saw me. No sunglasses. No hoodie. Just me. Clean-shaven. Calm. He blinked. Who?" I gestured to the couch. "Sit down." His eyes darted toward the door. "I wouldn't," I said, smiling faintly. "You're being recorded. But more importantly, I just want to talk." Max remained standing. "Look, man, I don't want any trouble." "No trouble," I said. "Just clarity." He didn't move. So I kept talking. "Do you know how many women you've done this to?" "I do. 6 at least. Some were married. Some lost their jobs. You? You just moved on." "I didn't force anyone," he said quickly. "No. You manipulated them. That's worse." He opened his mouth. Closed it again. I stood up slowly. "You ever think about the husbands? The kids? The fallout?" "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. You just didn't care," I interrupted. "You still don't." He rubbed the back of his neck. "So what now? You want me to apologize?" I laughed once. "No. I want you to disappear." He stared at me. "Delete your business page. Pull your accounts. Shut it all down. You have until Monday. If I see one more ad, one more client testimonial, one more sleazy post, this dossier goes to your former clients' families, to your college alma mater, to the local paper, to every job prospect within 50 miles. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. I leaned closer. "Do it, Max, or I'll make sure your name becomes a warning, not a brand." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't touch him. I just stared. Eventually, he nodded. I walked him to the door. Before he left, he turned and asked, "Why didn't you just hit me?" I shrugged. "Because then you win." And then I closed the door. That night, Vanessa texted me. "We need to talk. I want to explain everything. Please." I didn't answer. The kids were asleep. The house was quiet. And for the first time in months, I felt something strange. Peace. But the story wasn't finished yet. Because while Max was dealt with, and Vanessa's world had collapsed, I had one more move to make. And it was the one that would change everything. A month passed. That's how long it took for the silence to settle. The kind that doesn't scream or crack or beg for attention, just hangs in the air like smoke after a fire. Our house, once filled with the chaos of morning routines, forgotten backpacks, and half-eaten cereal bowls, now echoed. Vanessa moved out 2 weeks after the dinner. Not because I told her to. She just couldn't stay. The kids still asked about her. Sonia cried the first night she didn't come home. James was quieter, withdrawn. I tried to keep things normal, school, bedtime, pancakes on Saturdays, but something had shifted in them, too. Something they couldn't name yet, but would feel for years. I told them she was staying at Grandma's for a while. It was true enough. The divorce moved fast. Neither of us wanted a drawn-out war. Our attorneys exchanged formalities. We divided assets, coordinated custody. She didn't fight. Not once. She lost her job. Her friendships thinned. Max, true to his word, or maybe out of fear, deleted everything. His website, his profiles, his YouTube channel. Gone. Just like that. A ghost now. A whisper in a cautionary tale. But despite all that, I wasn't whole. Not yet. One Friday afternoon, I found myself back at the Bellamy Suites. I didn't know why I drove there. Curiosity? Closure? I parked in the same spot I had months earlier, the one I sat in when I first watched Vanessa walk in with Max room 214. I could still see the faint smudge her hand left on the glass door. The memory etched itself into my bones. I didn't go inside. Didn't need to. Instead, I pulled out my phone and opened the video. Not the hotel footage. Not the slideshow. But the last recording from the Airbnb confrontation with Max. The part one hadn't shared with anyone. At the very end, after I'd told him to disappear, before he turned to leave, he'd asked a question. Did she ever love you? At the time, I didn't answer. I'd shrugged, dismissed it. But as I listened again, I realized something I hadn't before. It didn't matter. Because I loved her. Not blindly. Not perfectly. But honestly. And she broke that. There was no reclaiming it. Only rebuilding from the rubble. 2 weeks later, Vanessa requested a meeting. Not through her lawyer, through a letter. Handwritten, folded neatly, left in the mailbox. She asked to speak. Just once, she wrote. Not to justify, just to explain. I agreed. We met at the park. Neutral ground. A wooden bench near the pond where the kids used to feed ducks. She arrived early, wearing jeans and a navy sweater, hair pulled back. No makeup. No armor. She looked tired. Older. I sat without speaking. She broke the silence. Thank you for coming. I nodded. Waited. I know nothing I say can undo what I did. Another pause. But I need you to hear me say it. I'm sorry. She looked at me then, and for the first time since the fallout, there was no defense in her eyes. No deflection. I didn't do it because of you. Or because of something you lacked. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about thrill. I just started disappearing inside myself. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize anything anymore. I stayed quiet. She continued. Max made me feel seen. At first, that was all it was. And then it became more. And I let it. A duck waddled past us, quacking. She laughed softly, wiping a tear. Do you remember bringing James here with a slice of banana bread just to see if ducks liked it? They did, I said. Yeah, they did. She inhaled deeply. I've lost everything. And I deserve it. But I never wanted to lose them. I finally turned to her. You didn't lose them. You broke something in them. But they're still yours. And they'll need you. Just not the way they used to. She nodded. Do you hate me? She asked. I thought about it. Really thought. No, I said. I don't. And I meant it. Because hatred is a tether. It binds you to the past. And I was done carrying her. She stood to leave, but hesitated. I don't expect forgiveness. But I hope someday you find something better. Someone better. I met her eyes. I already have. She blinked. And I stood, brushing off my jacket. Me. Then I walked away. Months passed. I took the kids on a beach trip. Just the three of us. We built sandcastles. Ate too much ice cream. I let them bury me in the sand. Their laughter filled something in me that had long been hollow. I started sleeping again. Real sleep. Not the kind where your body's still, but your mind's screaming. Work grew easier. I dove back into projects I'd neglected. Even joined a community basketball league. Nothing serious, just men my age trying to stay in shape and outrun the creeping rust in their joints. One evening after practice, a woman named Elise from the league's rec board introduced herself. She was warm, grounded, laughed with her eyes. We got coffee. Then dinner. I didn't tell her everything. Not yet. But when I did, she didn't flinch. I'm not afraid of your scars, she said. And neither was I anymore. I still pass the gym sometimes. Vanessa doesn't go there anymore. Neither do I. It stands as a monument to what was, but not what is. Now, our children split their time between homes. It's not always smooth, but they're resilient. They bounce back. And I'm honest with them. About mistakes. About healing. One night, as I tucked James into bed, he looked up and asked, "Are you happy, Dad?" I thought about the question, the years, the betrayal, the revenge, the loss, and the rediscovery. I smiled. I'm getting there.